a long time, and I've had a couple patients who do, I don't prescribe it, but I have patients that claim that has done a lot to help them, and the only mechanism I know of is stress reduction. I am not a proponent of using anti-anxiety meds to treat hereditary angioedema. I think we have more specific effective drugs for that, but I do think stress reduction in general is beneficial.
So I'm going to do 3 quick questions to try to get as much in as possible. First one, Mark just answered. What's your opinion, observation on relaxation, response, meditation, yoga, etc.? And I agree. I think it's a really smart strategy that we intend to try to study in the Angioedema Center. Then the second question is, what are we going to study in the Angioedema Center? Are we going to do looking for a cure? Are we going to understand de novo mutations? Basically, we're going to look broadly. It's very hard to answer this, and part it will depend on what funding we can get to push the research forward. But we're going to do both basic and clinical. It's just impossible to answer now. And the third related question was about factor 12, and is there any research being looked at in factor 12 antagonists? There is a company in California that has developed antisense oligonucleotides that they have shown can knock down factor 12. Perhaps someday somebody will apply that to angioedema or look at other factor 12-based therapies. Let me just point out one issue, though, that in HAE with normal C1 inhibitor with the factor 12 mutations, there is really no evidence to date, although it was first reported as a gain of function, meaning the factor 12 was overactive. There's really no data that shows that, and it would be important to confirm that, and that might spur on more research about specifically going after factor 12.
Yes. And I just had a comment before I move on to my questions that, listening to...
30-second warning.
I have nothing to say now.
21.
I was just going to say, at the center, one of the things of interest is we really do want to take a holistic or integrative approach and incorporate issues like triggers for attacks, such as stress, into the management programs for patients that are affected with HAE. So the question, do I have a second? Having recently been diagnosed with angioedema, face, feet, and hands, is it likely within time I can expect internal angioedema? And in this instance, it depends from the standpoint of the questioner, have they been diagnosed with type 1 or 2, or do they have a hereditary form with normal C1 inhibitor, in which case the answer would be that yes, you are at significant risk of having in a lifetime a laryngeal attack and certainly an abdominal attack. If you fall into, I think Dr. Zura eloquently used the term idiopathic, which you're now familiar with, you're really not at risk of having an internal attack. That's the good news of falling into that category.
So Janet, are you going to be the bad guy here? Do we have to stop? Or we have lots of questions. We're just getting warmed up.
One more. You have one more?
You were in the middle. I interrupted you, Sandra. Why don't you finish yours then?
Well, it was just kind of semi-related, but as a type 3, I struggle to get the help I need. With almost daily attacks, swells, things are pretty hard. What is the best way to get help? Type 3 is not approved, so I am stuck. Help. And I think that this is a poignant question that we, as Bruce had touched on, we don't have the tests, we don't have the approved therapies, we don't have the outcomes for you. And so this is an unmet need. I think that, as Tony said, within the next year, we're going to convene another conference to try and get experts together to look at this. And certainly this is an issue that we're going to try and focus on to come up with better answers than we have now, which is really to work with the HAEA to try and find a physician who's at least expert and knowledgeable and will work with you to try and find avenues for care and management of your problem.
I can't let this one go unaddressed. What if your child has cerebral palsy and can't talk? To let us know what hurt. She is only 3 years old and does have HAE. It's so, again, poignant, to say the least. My gut feeling, my emotional response to that, which is what I would do, is if you think she's hurting, personally, I would treat her. I think that, again, sort of going back to the issue of cost, I think that human dignity is more important, and that we're a rich enough society that we can afford the treatment.
I don't think we can say thank you enough to this panel, but let's try and give them a warm round of applause and our thanks. Perhaps you can, if your question wasn't answered, you can grab one of these physicians, or I'm throwing under the bus here, or one of our medical advisory board members at dinner. The only reason I'm being the bad guy is because dinner's here, so they have to come in here and change all the tables. But I would encourage you have time now before dinner to visit the pharmaceutical company tables, the hub rooms, the specialty pharmacy rooms. Take those in. For those who have children, the kids' dinner starts at 6:30. And please take note, tomorrow breakfast is at 8 o'clock. Don't forget the shuttle schedule. It's posted near the registration desk, and you have on your table surveys from the HAEA. We'd love to have you fill those out. When you're finished filling them out, you can simply leave them on the last table as you head out, and we'll collect them. Thank you so much, everybody. We'll see you at dinner.
And let me just add that we had so many wonderful questions. I'm really sorry that we couldn't get to all of them. They were fantastic, and I would stay here another an hour and just try to address them.
I know. I'm sorry.